Premier Clark has allowed logging in one of the last remaining fragments of spotted owl habitat that we have in BC. And it's actually a wildlife habitat area. And that area was set aside for spotted owl protection. And then local residents were very surprised, I guess it was last summer that I heard, that they found logging taken in an area of forest that was within this wildlife habitat area.
Right.
And then they realized that there's a problem. And last weekend there were chainsaws running in the morning and a logging road is being punched in. And this is a blueprint for how you push species into extinction. And it not only gives a black eye to the forestry industry in British Columbia, but it gives a black eye to our provincial government, that our laws are so weak that we allow logging in the critical habitat of endangered species when there's just 10 of them left. And it's true, we don't want to be known as a province that logs species into extinction, and that's the reputation that we're going to get if the spotted owl disappears from the wild here.
Okay. When I talk to the ministry guys, they say a wildlife habitat area is not for protection.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's not for protection. It's not a park. It's for wildlife management.
You know what's very interesting though is when they're talking about protected areas for spotted owl, the hectares, they include wildlife habitat areas. And so it's very interesting to hear that they don't consider wildlife habitat areas that are supposed to be managing owls, supposedly for recovery, that they don't consider those protected areas. Because that's news, I think, to the people in Chilliwack. It's news to the Wilderness Committee that we need to not manage spotted owls into extinction. We need to manage spotted owls into recovery. And you do that not by allowing logging in a wildlife habitat area that's been designated for spotted owls. You do that by protecting that area.
Okay.
But by managing, what they mean is that it's supposed to have a higher level of protection than a park. For instance, in this particular area, higher than a park, than a provincial park would have, because the provincial park, part of it's recreational, part of it's location based. A wildlife habitat could be in a remote area, for instance. It's not necessarily for people. It's based on what type of habitat is there. This is very rare habitat.
And they're supposed to be managing that for the species at risk.
Right?
Okay.
In this case, this is a reintroduction area, but they're allowing them to log the best trees out of that area, which makes the habitat unsuitable. So it's not really a WHA anymore if you allow that logging to take place.
Tamahai sent out a letter yesterday, Friday, saying that they're not taking the best trees. That they're taking. Just let me get this out.
Sure.
That they're taking. What phrase did they use? Second growth trees that aren't suitable for spotted owl habitat.
Completely not true. Absolutely not true. And if you look at the MOE documents, it'll tell you what the regulations are for that, and that is completely not true. They're taking the best trees from this WHA.
Well, now, I just talked to a ministry spokesman, and he says that is the fact. They are only allowed to take out so many
That's
trees.
true, but they're targeting the big trees because those are the most valuable. And those are also the trees that spotted owls need. And even when you're looking at the trees that have been cut to punch in the roads, you saw some big Doug firs that were down on the ground. So they do have to have some stand retention, but that's very vulnerable to blow down, and it won't. It's not spotted owl habitat anymore. It's like if your home, if they took away 3 walls and they left a wall standing, that doesn't provide you with
They're
protection.
going to identify the biggest 80 and leave 40. But that's not what these owls do. We wouldn't recommend reintroducing them if they do this type of thing because they probably wouldn't survive there. So what we want to do is have them reintroduced in an area where they can likely survive.
And I think that's a good point that Gwen made, that the province has a captive breeding program, which we support, but we don't support it if they're logging down the very habitat that they're supposed to be releasing the owls into.
Right, so a quote, potential nesting site or roosting tree is not enough?
No, it's not. And I wish, in some ways, I wish it were. They need big habitats, and they need what they like and what they survive for millennia in is old growth forests that have big open understories. That their prey is there because when they have to go across clear cuts, they're vulnerable to predation from other species. And we've seen what's happened. 100 years ago, we had 500 pairs of spotted owls in British Columbia. And today, because of consistent and ongoing logging in their habitat, we're down to 10 owls in the wild. And it sends a terrible message to the world that this is a government that says we're the best place on earth when it comes to environmental protection. But the proof's in the pudding. And the owl is the proof. Here we are down to 10, and the government says, here, we're going to set aside a wildlife habitat area to manage for the owl. Well, most people are thinking that's going to manage for the owl to recover, not to manage it into extinction. So they have to make a choice.
Okay, all right.
The other thing that's really important to keep in mind is this is only 2 to 3 weeks worth of work
Yes.
that Tamahai will receive from this. It is a piddly thing for the workers. The money to the company is probably significant, and they're going to make a ton of money logging these beautiful trees, but the workers will not. They won't suffer. They're not going to lose employment, basically.
And the other thing I would say, if you wanted to value add the logging industry, if you wanted to value add the logging industry in BC, one of the first things that you do, you ban raw log exports. I think we're up to, 4 million cubic meters. It went up, it's gone up dramatically in 10 years. So let's do that. Let's not log spotted owl habitat, and let's ban raw log exports.
I've heard that ever since I came to BC. Ban raw.
But you know what? We value add way less. We get one job. I think it's one job per 1,000-meter cut, and you go to New Zealand, and I think they get 3.5. You go to Sweden, you go to other areas of Canada. Everybody gets more. So why can't we?
Yeah.
I don't wonder.
Good question. Okay, thanks, Gwen. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.